Well, hi, this is Don Randall at HPE. I work in HPE GreenLake marketing worldwide, and love to cover, in just the few minutes we have together, some of the points about where we see Azure Stack HCI fitting, which is in a lot of spots, and how HPE is approaching this opportunity on our part, and what we've done for some customers and how we can help over the future. So we're going to look at a few things. I'll talk a little bit, but better yet, I think it's more important to see how we can work, particularly with HPE GreenLake, how it works and what it feels like to be an Azure Stack customer of HPE's. So starting out, what is Azure Stack HCI and where does it fit? It is really five different use cases that we see along with Microsoft that customers are adopting Azure Stack HCI. It's trusted enterprise virtualization. So it's a great way to modernize with HCI your Windows infrastructure in the data center or at a colocation or at the edge. It's great for remote branch offices and the edge because it can be a very small deployment over multiple sites, and more about how we can help that in the future in a couple of slides. It's good for VDI. If you've got a real need for your workforce, for people to work at home, work wherever they are, but have a trusted interface to sensitive information and to get great throughput and reliability wherever they're working. VDI is a great solution, and this is a great platform for VDI. And it's great for high performance SQL. So we have the ability to scale performance nicely with Microsoft Azure Stack HCI. And of course, SQL is one of the main SQL-based apps are one of the most popular uses for Windows in general and for this particular implementation. And new, I think, is that it is tightly integrated with the Kubernetes platform so that you can run your containerized apps alongside your VM apps, and it's pretty seamless. And our experience so far to date with Azure Stack HCI pretty much mirrors this kind of an approach. We see customers that are adopting Azure Stack HCI for compute requirements on the factory floor. Simple way to get things done with very, very low latency to machines that are connected, and to get the data turned around to corporate or to the cloud quickly. It's a great way to address privacy and regulatory compliance in healthcare, where we don't want the data to leave the building, but we want to make sure that we're totally connected enterprise-wide. And it's a great way, another customer that is using it to reduce latency and just to modernize their Windows apps in general as they are distributed across the enterprise. So we're seeing those use cases to begin with. There are going to be many more as we go through Microsoft Azure Stack implementations. It is an Azure hybrid story, and that's exactly where HPE is. We believe computing is hybrid. Most of you work in the cloud and on premises. It's going to stay that way. We think there's a multi-cloud story we see customers adopting, and we know that customers need to get work done on the edge, and Azure Stack, the whole Azure hybrid story, is a great one, and we'll show how we complement that. So what does HPE offer for Microsoft Azure Stack HCI? Right now we have validated solutions for HCI, the EPYC-based, AMD-based ProLiant solutions, the Intel-based ProLiant solutions, the Apollo-based solutions, which is a higher performance computing solution, and the Edge workload optimized solution, which is based on our HPE Edge line. So you can go from market-leading industry standard computing to very higher performance computing to distributed edge computing, all under the banner of HPE's validated solutions. And of course, if you need more data about these validated solutions, we are on the Azure Stack HCI marketplace. Just look for us under HPE, and you'll find all these different solutions. You can dive into some of the specs, you can configure them, you can get started with them, and I'd encourage you to spend the time on the Azure Stack marketplace. Now, I do want to spend a few minutes, since I work on GreenLake, and since HPE GreenLake is where HPE sees our future in terms of bringing that cloud experience to you wherever you are, wherever your apps and your data are. That's kind of our tagline, the cloud that comes to you. And what that means is we are providing a cloud-like experience for everything on premises and for the public cloud, married together with one operating model and one operating environment. What we think that means is it's self-service, it's pay-per-use, gives you the ability to scale up and down quickly, and is managed for you. So you have less work to do as IT to do the mundane things that you really shouldn't spend much time on when you could be adding more value to the organization. So things like firmware updates and performance tweaks and such, moves, add changes, we can take care of the things that IT typically has done, but which really drag down productivity. We can do this at your edges. Think stores, think oil platforms, think hospitals, think factory floors. We can do this in your colocation or your data center, and we can manage your cloud for you too. We're great partners with Azure, and in fact, we are an Azure expert CSP. So we are well equipped within HPE GreenLake to take on a hybrid environment such as Azure Stack HCI presents. We'll be coming to market with an HPE GreenLake with Azure Stack HCI offer, and we are talking to early customers right now. This goes beyond the validated node that we have. We will probably move to an integrated node, which is much more turnkey. You can get it quicker. It comes up very quickly and integrates right into your environment and lets you get started quickly. It'll have the same choice of platforms, whether it's ProLiant or Apollo or Edgeline from HPE, but it'll be much more of an integrated experience for you as you get it into your site. We include obviously the fully installed and configured Azure Stack HCI software, and we offer, in addition, HPE GreenLake Central, and we offer all the management and billing that comes with that. We bring the cloud experience not only to the Azure services, but to the underlying infrastructure, meaning we can monitor and manage the infrastructure for you. We bill you based on what you've used on the metered usage, and you'll get that bill that goes up and down every month, depending on your usage. And we add extra capacity that you'll have on site in order to grow quickly without having to order new systems if that's what you need to do, if that's a good fit. And then we, of course, we include services and support, but not just maintenance services. We have a very comprehensive experience as far as operational services for you, but we do the deployment, and we can manage the Azure Stack HCI in its entirety on your behalf, really from a remote management site, including with an on-site presence, so that you have full confidence in what we're doing, full transparency to what we're doing, but it's not work that you have to do day to day. So that is the picture that we'll present to the market. And since we are a CSP, this can be all inclusive. It can include your Azure public cloud services as well. One bill for all your charges, full transparency with you, full management of both, and additional services, things like enhanced services such as backup or additional regions that you want to use. We help make those happen for you and control the expenses by monitoring usage, monitoring your costs, and offering ideas where you could cut back on costs. So it's a pretty full MSP relationship, CSP relationship that we have with Azure that we can provide to you. So here's a little more detail about how we manage the environment. We can monitor and operate. That's not unusual. Well, many people can do that. We do the administration, user administration, configuration, and we can advise and optimize your environment for you as well based on the data we collect while we're monitoring and operating. We can do this for the infrastructure. We can do this for applications within Azure Stack, and we can take this all the way to workloads such as VDI and other workloads that you happen to incorporate into your Azure Stack HCI environment. So it's a modular and full choice arrangement. We'll start with a simple arrangement where we really manage just the infrastructure, its availability, and its support. Or we can step that up and manage through the operating environment, or we could step that up further and manage your Windows apps, and everything below, as well as the Microsoft public cloud services. So what we bring to market over the next months will be this modular and cloud experience top to bottom for Azure and Azure Stack HCI. So rather than talk about it, though, I think the best choice is to see it. So what I'd like to do is ask my friend Steve Showalter to take us through a quick demonstration, a couple minutes, to show how we integrate into GreenLake Central. From GreenLake Central, we can manage your environment with Azure and Azure Stack. So Steve?
Hi, this is Steve Showalter from the HPE GreenLake Cloud Services Business Development Team. I'm here today to give you a brief introduction and demo of HPE GreenLake Central. GreenLake Central is a SaaS-delivered platform that we provide for all of our GreenLake customers. One of the most popular questions I get asked is, what do I, as a customer, use GreenLake Central for? And the answer is, it really depends. GreenLake is really a continuum of offerings for our customers, from very simple hardware consumption model up to a fully managed platform service. So what you do as a customer in GreenLake Central depends on the type of service you're consuming. For the purpose of today's demo, we'll focus on some of the core capabilities we deliver to all of our GreenLake customers, and we'll focus on how we integrate specifically with some of the Microsoft platforms. So as you can see, I'm logged into GreenLake Central. GreenLake Central is made up of various widgets or tiles that provide a top-level view of some information that we have varying levels of detail for as you continue to drill down into them. So let's take a look at a few. The first tile in the upper right is a monthly charges summary. So my monthly charges summary gives me an overview of what my overall GreenLake spend has been over the last 8 months. As I drill down into this, what I'll see are all my GreenLake resources divided up by data center or location, and then divided up by type. So we can see here we have data centers in Amsterdam and Fort Collins, and we have all sorts of GreenLake resources that we're consuming. We've got some compute services along servers. We've got VM as a service that we're consuming. We've got some containers as a service solution. And really anything I'm consuming from a GreenLake perspective, again, whether it's hardware, whether it's managed services, whether it's things like Azure or Azure Stack, my consumption and my cost all show up here and are displayed to give me a view of what I've consumed and understand, what appears on my GreenLake bill at the end of the month. So the next tile we'll talk about is the upper left tile, this all tracked cost tile. One of the great stories about GreenLake Central is the tool that we use that runs behind GreenLake Central that manages consumption and cost is also capable of pulling costs in from cloud providers as well. So we can see in this particular case what my GreenLake spend has been, as well as my spend in Azure and Amazon over the past 30 days. As I continue to drill down in this environment, again, I can get a greater and greater granular view of what those costs are. And in fact, I have full access to Consumption Analytics, the tool that we use to meter these charges and display these charges, available at my disposal as a full report writing tool and deep dive analysis tool. So as I drill down into this, again, if I want to focus just on what my Azure costs were, perhaps, if I click on Azure, all the widgets update to show me this is now reflecting my Azure costs, and I can drill down into all the Azure services that I'm consuming, find out what they've been utilized at and what they've cost. In addition to pulling that cost information for all these providers, we'll also pull any available tags as well. So with its full report writing capability, I can use now not only that cost information, but also that tag information to create some reports that might be interesting to me or useful to me. So for example, let's say I want to create a report that shows me my Azure cost by department, where department is a tag that I'm applying. In a matter of really just a few minutes, I can write a quick report that focuses on what my Azure costs were by department using that tagging information. And I have the ability to also drill down into that consumption if I really want to get a granular view of not just at a high level the fact that my hybrid IT department consumed $3,500, but to see every individual resource that was consumed, what the cost of those individual resources were, and maybe do some show back or charge back to my individual departments. So again, outside of Azure environment, we can also pull costs for an AWS environment as well as any GreenLake environments that you're consuming. So really providing our customers that single place to be able to go view and understand what their costs are on a consumption basis. One other service we offer our customers that we deliver through GreenLake Central is continuous compliance. Continuous compliance is an offering to help give our customers a view of their overall compliance posture against whatever governance or regulatory frameworks they need to stay in compliance with across multiple providers. So currently the use of this tool is focused on AWS and Azure environments, but we're also adding on-prem virtualized environments as well. We deliver the frameworks and the rules under those frameworks that customers can apply to whichever of their subscriptions that they want. As they apply a framework to a subscription, we start to execute the underlying rules against the metadata of that provider and start to let the customer know when and where they're out of compliance. So in this case, in this Azure environment, we can see there are several places where I'm in compliance, but also several places where I'm out of compliance with the Azure CIS 1.1 framework. Selecting those places where I'm out of compliance, I can get detailed information on how do I go remediate that issue. And more importantly, I can drill down into what the resources are in the various subscriptions that have me out of compliance for that particular framework. So I can pass those on to whoever owns that subscription to let them know this needs to be fixed for an upcoming audit that we may have. So with that, I hope that's given you a very brief introduction and view of some of the basic capabilities of GreenLake Central that we deliver for all of our GreenLake customers, as well as some ways we can reach into and provide a hybrid view for customers utilizing an Azure or Azure Stack environment. Thanks. Have a great day.
Well, thanks, Steve. And again, seeing is much better than talking about it, isn't it? So for the Azure Stack transition, everyone needs to move into the HCI environment. That could be a corporate-wide transition. That could be a transformation effort involving business issues, expertise. Where are we going as a company? They could get global, or it could be fairly focused. I want to let you know that we do have a framework for this. We just announced in September the Edge to Cloud Adoption Framework, and this is a way for us to give advisory services to customers like you who are grappling with how to really move to the cloud in the best way possible for their business. So strategy and governance, how do we foster innovation as an organization? How do we handle our skill sets and the skills that people have and move people into the right spots, up-leveling what they can do? How do we manage the applications? How do we set up DevOps and make that function well? What do we do about data and securing that data? And then what's the best way to operate this hybrid environment and keep it secure and keep this in one unified operating model? That's what this framework does for us. We have experts, thousands of Microsoft trained experts who are trained in this domain expertise model, and who are ready to help a small migration all the way to a major transformation, depending on where you are in your move to cloud. So we think that that's the right way to go. There have been examples where customers have maybe had a cloud-first choice and maybe not done it correctly, and we see applications coming back from the cloud to an on-premise environment or colocation. And we can help that happen too, but that's not the norm. The norm is to do it right, figure out which applications reside where, and then make that transition fully across all of these 8 domains. So that's where I'd suggest you start. Engage us with a workshop to get an understanding of where you are and exactly what you need to do, and we can dive in together. So again, Microsoft and HPE working together on a quality Microsoft Azure Stack HCI implementation just for you. If you need more information, there are a couple of URLs on the screen here, or I'd encourage you to go to the Azure Stack Marketplace and look us up and get started with us. So thank you so much. Appreciate your time today.